Hello! So, today we are going to look at SurrealDB, which is a new database which seems pretty amazing. I've done a little bit of trying to make it work in Rust, and I've been playing around with the CLI. And there's a very good 100-second videos and a few others on it. The main point of it, and the pretty amazing thing I think, is that it allows you to store relational data and do relational queries without having to do joins. And I haven't done or seen any benchmarks yet, but it should be able to be a lot faster and a lot easier to query, which is good because a lot of the projects I'm working on now, I know it's been a while since my last things, but I've been working on quite a lot of things, which hopefully will be seeing the fruits of. I'm working on a paper which hopefully will be out soon, and I'll make a video going over that. But anyway, some of the projects I'm working on now that I have involve databases and tags and various things. Maybe not the most complicated things is out there, but I'm already starting to have maybe 3 or 4 joins, and then if I implement some more features, I'll easily have half a dozen, and all that logic gets a lot more confusing. So hopefully I've done some fairly basic things with SurrealDB, but hopefully it can be improved to a point where not improved. I can understand it to a point, and it can be implemented and fine, etc., to a point where it makes all that a lot easier, basically. That is the hope. So the first thing that I did, and it's written in Rust, so firstly you can use it as an embedded database, which would also be nice, because it's always a pain, I have found, to try and set up you might have this MySQL installation which you then have to manage, and then you have your program which is talking to it, and obviously there are places where you'd want to do that, but I think it would be nice to be able to have an embedded database. I was looking into SQLite, and then I saw this, and they said you could use it as an embedded database in Rust, and I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. So let's try. Now, the first thing I did was try it normally. That is to say, just in Rust, I made a new Hello World project. I added it to the TOML, and then I went run, and as you can see, I got this error from the compilation, which is to do with this rquick.js sys thing. Now I'm not entirely sure what to do with that, so I'm trying to do it on Linux. Let me just, and I have managed to get that working. I just need to set up a new, I'm just setting up a new container, which will just take a moment. Go to network, change the IP address. Okay, so what I have a Proxmox server which I can just run some Ubuntu containers on. So I've just made up a new one, so I'll go through how to do that. So add new SSH host. It's on. Good. Okay, let's try connecting. I've always not gonna work. It's Linux. Continue. So, let's start a new. Oh wait, let me just. Let me open it up in Putty so we can do a cargo new. Right, so the containers in Proxmox are pretty neat. So I just spun up a blank, I say blank new one. It's already got some amount of configuration, which is pretty good. So now I'm going to go cargo new SurrealDB test. I'm just going to put the name of the container in because I have a few of these open. Okay, so now we can go okay with that. Okay, so now we're in and we can go run this, and it all works. We get a hello world, which is what we want. So now now what we want to do is first see if we can get SurrealDB to work. So in here, I'm just going to put this in, and then cargo run again. I'm also going to add the Rust extension because you need to extort Rust analyzer and the TOML one, which I can't find. Oh no, it was TOML and crates, that's what we want. Okay, so if we go back to the terminal, it takes a little while, but at least what I found last time is that there was some additional messing around that was required before it would work, which is annoying. Yeah, it does take a while. What we can do in the while waiting for this to compile, we can have a look at the CLI. Let me just get that up. So here, this is just local because it works on Windows, but I just can't figure out how to compile it on Windows. There may well be a way to do it. So if you want to start, you get I'll do surreal start, and then just for now user root pass root memory, and then I also I'll put it on 0.0 colon 5,000 instead of 8,000. Just wait, does this need to be in? I had this working before. Wait, okay, well I'll get back to that. Blast, sorry. Where did everything go? Okay, let's go back to here. Right, so what we got was at least a more helpful error. So this one is about something to do with OpenSSL. And my understanding is that it needs an SSL library to compile, but it doesn't have it, and it doesn't know to use the inbuilt one. So let me just figure out what, because there was if you're compiling on Linux and also targeting currently, this requires the pkg config utility. So I installed that. So let's see if that works. So I'll get my terminal over here, hopefully, right, and then put that in. And now if we try again, there is the same, there's one of the same, that error is gone, but we still have this libssl-dev, so we can just install that as well. And now if we run it again, we escape from the errors for a while, but at least last time I tried there was still another one. So I always forget. Right. That's very bizarre, it was working before. I will investigate that. But anyway, we've got the same thing. This is libclang, libclang. I'm probably something to do with Clang, given that it's also Rust and a LLVM. So in order to fix that, we can install that now from there. And after this, the reason it doesn't work on here is that I installed the CLI on my laptop, not on my desktop. Anyway, so now if we compile it, I think it should go to completion. The other thing is that there's lots of async things in it. So the other thing that is required is Tokyo of the full variety. The crates VS Code plugin doesn't seem to like this, but I'm not sure why, because it works fine. Anyway, so you need an async runtime to do asynchronous things, and Oh yeah, I think RocksDB. So let me. The RocksDB takes a long time to compile, if I remember correctly. But I think it's. Yeah, I'm not sure it. Why? Because at least in the messages they were talking about using compiling on Linux and those dependencies. So I suspect the reason it doesn't compile on Windows is related to that, but I'm not entirely sure. And it is useful to be able to run these things on Windows, even if Windows is not my favorite operating system, which it isn't. So in order to install it, there's just some it's quite easy. There's just a command on the SurrealDB website to install them. Though the Windows one, as was just demonstrated, that only works in PowerShell, which is which I can't see it saying. So does it need to be reloaded? Let's see if I go Surreal. That is odd. I'm pretty sure that is the command. Yeah, Surreal's. Let me try Surreal style. I don't know if that will make any difference. Oh, maybe it hasn't added. Oh, that's very strange because it just worked before. And it's put it in. No, that doesn't make any difference. That is very odd. I wonder if I've done something stupid. Because it's installed, successfully installed Surreal help. That just doesn't work. Does it matter where you run it from? Yeah. Oh. Very frustrating waiting for things to compile. The other thing that I found on my previous tests is that even when it was working, it the main file took. Ah, that's working. Okay, don't ask me why that is. Okay. So allow access. Right. Okay. So now we can go Surreal SQL --c and then localhost 5000 and then user root plus root and then we namespace and db test. Is it not like C? Let's try con. And it says let me just right, no, that need to well that works. Maybe you need the HTTP. Possibly. Anyway, so now we are in, and in SurrealDB can act both as schemaless and schemaful. So we can create I'd say if we can just go create person. You can either put, one thing you could do is you could put something in here, either a name or some ID code, and the way that rows or records are referenced in SurrealDB is not with a foreign key that's just a number, like in, say, MySQL or other ordinary SQL databases, but is a combination of the table name and then some unique parameter, which could be anything, and then you put that in, you put that ID and the table name together, and that gives you basically a pointer to that specific record, which allows you to do some pretty neat things. So if I just go create person, and then I can do set name equals, don't remember whether you have to put quotes, but let's see if we, and semicolons. So now you see it's generated an ID and a name. So then we can do a query. We can do select all from person, and we get that same record back. There's, don't remember how, but there is a way to change how it displays. I think that's, yes, you can, if you go dash pretty, then it does a pretty print like that, which is, I think, sometimes easier to see. And the the one thing has finished. RocksDB, I think, has finished compiling. Okay, that's good. So now, if we create a project and then set name equals to compactor, for example, then we have that, and then if I suppose this is what the up arrow is made for, but then we put in Polycycle, which is another program that I'm working on. Then if we select all from project, then we get both of them. So what we can do is we can do update person set projects equal to, and then one of the really nice things about SurrealDB is you can use arrays. So what I can do is I can do project and then colon, and then, oh, don't need to do that, I can just copy it from here. So I copy this, and then I copy this, and then doesn't matter for now because so you could either do a where, or if I get the ID of person here, and then I go back here, I think this should work. Ah, yes, so now you see projects are in there. So what we can do is if we just do a select all from person, that's what we get with those records, which isn't very helpful. But if we go select projects dot name from person, then you get polycycle and compactor. So normally, I'm pretty sure if you wanted to do that in SQL, you would have to do a join. You'd have to store the key as a foreign key, what the primary key is in your project table, and then you'd have to do a join on them together. But in this, you just don't have to do that, and that seems a lot easier to me. You can also, the graph traversal makes two-way relationships a lot easier, which I can. So, for example, if you had, and I might go over this a bit later, but for example, if you had multiple users and multiple projects, and one person would work on many projects and one project would be worked on by many people, you could set. Effectively, there's one command that automatically sets up a junction table, and then you can use arrows basically to go between the graph connections to create them, which makes life easy. Right, so now we're getting a hello world, which is good because that means it has compiled. Wrong one. Okay, so now we want to go to our main, and we want to use Tokyo because it's async, and then we want to Tokyo main, and then async here, and then I think it's nicer if you put in make it return a result, because then you can use a question mark, though I've had problems with that because, well, we'll get onto that. So in order to do that, we need to use standard error, the trait, and then at the bottom we need okay, and then like that, and then it should be happy with us. Oh, and now it needs to what am I trying to say? Now it needs to compile Tokyo, so I'm not sure how long that will take. So the first thing we do is we create a data store, which is the main thing, the structure that basically your database. But I think you can have multiple databases within a data store. It's like what I started up on the terminal here, and I suspect if you look in the code that generated this, you would see the line that I'm about to write, which is data store new, and then you can either, so the basic one is memory and then await question mark like this, and what this will do is it will just generate a blank it will generate a data store which at this point is just blank, but it will keep it all in memory, so that means when your program shuts down it all gets purged. And this is just copying this, so if we just copy from the docs, which in my opinion are slightly problematic, So we can, I'll just put this in here. So we can see it's import that. So we want to create a session which holds authentication and other details which we'll get onto, and then we have the AST, which is the, I'm not exactly sure what AST stands for. I haven't looked very hard. Haven't quite been able to find that out, but that's where your query goes basically. And then let's print out the response. So if we do this there, and there'll be nothing in person, so it should just be empty, but it should work. And then you have this execute, which takes the string, which represents the query, takes a reference to the session, takes the variables. Now, I'm not exactly sure whether, let me, what it does with the variables, whether you can inject them in. I'm just looking at the source code now. I'm not sure whether in here. So this is the code for the execute function. So new query options, new executor, context, attach the query variables. But I'm not, that doesn't seem like they inject them into your into your statement here. So I'm not sure how a safe way to put things in there without allowing SQL injection type things are. So there's hopefully a way to, I'm sure there's a way to do that, but I'm not sure. The for my projects at the moment, I don't think that really matters, but I think that is an important point. That's probably a way to do it. So now, well, there's nothing in there, so that's not terribly helpful. So what if we, wrong thing. Well, why don't we try another one? Let's see here. So instead of select, let me do create person set name equal to I think you can do that. Is it? I forget. There's a way that is it like this? How do you? This hash goes in front, and that hash goes there, and then we can use those inside. Probably doesn't make any difference, but right. So set name. So now let's try another one. If we let not less let well, we can just do let select res equal execute here, and then for the text we can just put this in. So let's just do select all from person, semicolon in there, right, and then we want our session. Now in the functions, the parameter inside the functions, they use SESS, but in the docs, in the example, they do let SES for session, which seems very bizarre to me and also very annoying because you have to edit it. Anyway, we need a reference. Maybe it's because the SESS is reference to SES, or whatever. But for the vars, we need none, and for this, false. So this looks pretty good, and then we should be able to print line. This is all exciting, so yes, line, and then we want select result. Except, oh, no, I need dot await, question mark, dot await. So, let me see, is there anything I've done? Not entirely sure, it does not implement. I'm not entirely sure why, because that's why I did debug print that. Right. So let's try running this. So hopefully we should get one from the first result. We should get what we had last time. Basically just saying okay. No, sorry. On the first one, we should have one saying, we've created this record. And then on the second one, we should have it giving us that record again. But, oh wait, it says result error, NS empty. So what does that mean? Well, on the first one, we had two queries. We had these two lines. We have this use NS test, use DB test. And you would have to put that in every line. But there's a way around that, which is using the with NS and with DB test. And now, if you put those in, then it sort of basically adds that to each one that you do. But at least to me, that is not obvious from at least the data store examples, because they always just use session for KV, which doesn't actually, which doesn't do that. So here, now that does work. So if we get rid of this and we try again, the other thing you might have noticed is that it takes a while to compile, which is rather annoying. It takes about 20 seconds, and though I suppose this isn't actually compiling on my computer because I can't get it to run on my computer. If I allocate some more cores to the container, let me see how it's doing. I don't know, it doesn't, I need some better, but if I try going again, how high does the CPU usage go? Oh wait, I haven't changed anything. Anyway, so that works. I'll look next time. Okay, so now the other question is, this is all just in memory, but really you would want to be able to use bit to persist. So for example, if you've got an application, then you want the state from the last time it was on to persist the next time. So the way that we do that is we put the just comment that out in case you want to switch back. So in here we just put file / and then just the name of it. So test.db. And in the docs, if we just go to data store new, let me show you here. Data store new says, or to create a file backed store. So what you will notice is, so instead of create person, I'm just, what I've been using for my test is just entry, and then set the time parameter. So I think that's right. Time now. Yeah, so you can use, there's quite a lot of pretty neat functions you can use. So this looks pretty good, I think. So yeah, all from entry. So if we run it, yes, but it's only, this was one of the things I saw one of John's videos about speeding up compilation, and this container has 2 CPUs and it's using about almost exactly 50%. So it's basically just pinning one core, which is very frustrating. I suspect but even if you split it out into lots of different modules, if it's taking that long just to to compile this small amount, you'd still get that same problem. Anyway, so here, I'll comment this out because what we really care is about the next one. But we get a response, which is okay, and then we have a thing, and we have the ID, and then when is at 1817. This is UTC, so yeah. So now, remember the doc said that the new file /test.db creates a new database. So what behavior would we expect if we ran this again? Well, so now you can see we have one that came in at 1819 and one that came in at 1817. So there are 2 records in there. So it actually does what you'd want it to do. The new looks and sees if there is a database file. I'm not exactly sure how it's structured. There's a bunch of different files. It's actually a directory. Anyway, it looks at that path, and if there's a database there, then it uses that one, and if there's not, then it generates a new one, which is the desired behavior, but I'd say non-obvious, at least. I mean, yeah, because I was looking for a new, for a different method, different function, that created, that hooked on to an existing one. But it's just the same one, which I suppose is more convenient. So, now, I've found it easier to use a memory one because then it's the same every time and you don't have to worry about state. So, what I do here is I will just add two of these entries. So we should have 2 with very similar timestamps. And then let's see how it works. And if you print them with a little hash, they look fairly similar to what you did before. So now the question is, how do you get the stuff? How do you get the actual important information out of that structure? So you can see here you have a lot of nested things. Now I was just being a bit daft or whatever, but I was initially quite confused by this. So we have an array. So I'm pretty sure if you have up here, when we had multiple ones, you'd have multiple responses. So I'm pretty sure if you have multiple semicolon separated queries, or whatever you want to call them, then you get multiple responses in this initial vector, which makes sense. And then inside the response, you have this SQL field. I'm not exactly sure what that does. The time, it's the time it takes to execute, which in this case is 492 microseconds. And then you have a result, which is OK. And the way that things are stored or sort of returned is that they use this value enum. Let's see, right. So here it has 23 variants of all the basically different things it could use. So you have none, null, false, true, number, strand. I'm not sure what a strand is. Oh, it's just a string. Okay. But basically, you have, and these are all, I think, basically type aliases for the different things that you can store in a database, basically. Let's not do that. And so what you end up with is you have array, but this first array is value : array. That array is what the I suppose the branch, you call it, of the enum. And the second one, this is actually an array type. And the same thing here. This is the object variant of the value enum, and then this is an actual object type. And then in here, and then, well, this array contains two. You have this first object here, which was 2120, and this one very slightly different timestamps in them, microseconds. So in order to get these out, let me cut this out. What I have done so far is to do so this is the response. I'll call it that. And then here we have the result. So this is the actual stuff inside. I mean, I'm not sure of the lecture. I'm sure we can figure that out. But basically, we take the response, and then because if we look at the structure here, the first thing we have in is array. So you might want to go over these if you have multiple, but at the moment I just have one, so I want the first one there. And then I have the response, which is an enum. So yeah, so what you want to do is you want output, which is basically a function which, because the response, misspelled response, that's a bit daft. The response struct is, how do you say this? I'm pretty sure, well, we can look it up in the docs. Response, where's the response? This one of these returns a response. So in the response, we can get the speed, and we can get the output. So it contains this result enum, and the output just passes that forward. So basically we can get at that, but get it in as a reference. So I tried using question mark because obviously I want to raise the if it's the error. That's the better way to do it. But then I get the because it's borrowed, cannot return value referencing local variable, and I tried to clone it. That doesn't. There's probably a way to do this, but I am not. And it's annoying because unwrap works, but don't really want to use unwrap. So I suppose the thing that you could do is you could have another error saying that you got an error here, and you could use an if let or whatever. But for now, I shall just use unwrap because it's easier, and but I mean, I think it would be a good thing to think about. Okay, so now we get this, and if we, so at this point we've gone into the response, and we've gone into this OK variant. So now what we actually have, as you see, this is a value. So this value is an enum that, as it so happens, contains an array. So what I was doing is an if let value array, and then I'm not exactly sure what they call them, but then then we have the rows, and then we can iterate over them, and then we're at this point we're dealing with these objects. So then we have to do another layer of unpacking. So this time we're looking for object, and obviously these can be different because when we were looking at the weird thing is has both string and this string thing. I'm not exactly sure what the difference between that and a strand is. I know not. Anyway, so at this point we're effectively at this level, and what each row is an enum that contains an object. So what I want to do, I'm just calling it object because I'm rather uninspired, but then in here we can print this, and we can just put it in. So now, hopefully, we should get effectively this part. Where are we? This part printed. And this part printed. Let's see what we get. Here we are. So we have ID, which is and then it's got that. Yes, I wonder. I'm just interested what what thing is exactly, because it's not a very descriptive name. Oh, well, it seems like... Right. So thing has a table field, which is a string, and an ID, which is an ID. Oh, that could be... Oh, I suppose, yeah, it could be a number string, or it could be a number array. Interesting. Anyway, so this thing is actually the sort of unique record identifier. I think. That is, to me at least, a confusing name for it. Okay, well that's good to know. Right, so this whole... So if we do id.get, well, let's say if we... so if we did, let's say, if we needed the IDs for something else, then we could go in here and we could do now in the object that has a get method which returns an option. So what we'd want to do is we'd want to go id act.push, I think, and for the value on object.get id, question mark. Oh, copies and options. I thought you could use an option. Well, let me. I prefer the errors from use.ok or. Okay. Yeah, return. Oh, I suppose if you have a function that returns a right, let's see. If you have a function that returns an option, then you can use the question marks on options inside it. I suppose that does make sense because a none doesn't always mean an well, and then you have to go how would you turn the none into an error? Okay. So though you might not always select ID. Anyway, for now, we can just unwrap, because there might be some queries where you would not want the ID. So what am I trying to say? Where you would want the well, you might not select the ID, you might just be interested in other things. But in this case, we do want the ID. So then if we go down here, we can... Sorry, lost my train of thought. We can print our ID accumulator, and hopefully this should just give us 2 IDs. Though I suppose what we could do is we could, if we switched from a in-memory database to a stored database, then yes. So this is the thing. But what we probably want is we'd want to do unwrap and is there, let me just have a look at value. Is there a method? Oh, there is. Oh, it's a bit. So what I should be able to do here is okay. So what I want to get thing out. Oh. So how do you do as to how do you generally use the is it into and then if you I'd want to do thing. T for you. Oh, the wrong way round. So what does, is there some way to just get think? So there's that, there is an is thing. There's an is thing method, but there isn't just a method that I can't seem to find one that just make table or thing. What does that do? And then there's also, sorry, this is what I'm looking at. So in make table or thing. So I see. So it. If it is a table or a thing, it just returns that. If it's not, it does something else. It just sort of generates. Okay, so that's not what I'm looking for. So there isn't a make. Although I suppose I could use the make. No, because it's still a value. So what I want is except I can't implement methods on, that's the orphan rule. I might make a, but basically what I want is what's this? Oh, wait. Okay. So I want, this is going to be get thing, and then this is going to be a val, which is going to be a value. Is that in value in scope? And then it's going to return a result of type so if that's going to be a thing, or it's going to be error. Does it need to be a specific? What kind of error can you make? So I'll just do the box error. That happy? Okay. So then I want to go match val if it is thing, then I want okay. No, I want thing g okay t, and that's the thing as well. And if it's anything else, then I want error, and I want no thing in value expected. I would need value. Okay, so how do you so those are IO. Well, I suppose if I just do that, does that? So do you have to create an error type? I haven't done much error handling before. Okay. Okay, let me just do that down here. Struct. Just call it. Because I can't think of an inspiring name at the moment. And then if I do impl new, and then this is going to take details slice, and this is going to return self. Why doesn't it look like this? Where does it want the comma? I don't know, I've just done something. Oh, that's why it's that that's causing the problem. I think. Maybe. Right. So if I uncomment this now, syntactic error explanation. Oh, I need to say what it's for. Error, and then I want here, I want that to be in curly braces. Oh, and then I need a FN here. That's what's good. Right. I'll just call this generic error. Right, and then it's probably a crate that does this. And then I'm pretty sure we can just derive. Is there a snippet? That seems like it would be a good. Derive. Oh, I suppose the reason I could just copy that. Import format, standard format, and then generic error. That looks good. So now, go to this function, then we can do generic error new, and then what did I say before? No thing in value enum match arms incompatible. Oh, so do I need to put it in the box? Well, I can just do another question mark. I think does that. So now this here I can do. I can't do it as a method, but what I can do is I can do get thing. suppose I should lowercase that. Get thing like that. Mismatched types expected value. Well, can either return. We can, if we take a reference to value, does that work? Let's see. Exciting. Ah, good. So now they're just as things. Now, if you just interesting how thing does not implement display. How would you, if we look at the thing docs, we want thing. This is what we want. So is there a method, because to raw, so maybe it's in the toString. If it implements toString, then why doesn't it? For ID in ID talk. And comment that, and here we go. ID. This should have a similar effect, except that it prints them out on two strings. So of course, we have to wait 20 seconds for it to do. I'm looking how to speed it up, because that is awfully annoying. But because I can't download it on Windows, and I have not yet sorted out the Linux desktop thing. Anyway, there we are. So what if we do two? So yes, it has two raw, two string, and two out. So, I always forget that if we do two string. Now, just that if you were trying to embed that in queries, that would be very useful to be able to do. C. Yes, that looks good. So I think that's right. So in terms of what the next steps are as sort of actually building an application, I think the foundations are here. I suppose the next thing I might do is just see if I switch this around. I'm also going to okay, and it's also always a good idea, well, because in the past I've almost got caught out with directories with loads of stuff in, trying to get at it being a bit hairy. So I've just, in the git ignore, just putting star.db, because any db you wouldn't want in git. Right, so if we do it this way, if we run this once, then there should be, run it once, then we should get the same thing as we got last time. But then if we delete the insert clauses, if we delete these and wait another 18 to 20 seconds, we should get the same thing again. So I didn't get that. Anyway, so here, yeah, so you got the same ones. So what we let me just check in here, because if we have the ID, if we've got this part here, can we do that's from, what's that an ID of? Oh, that's the person. So could we do select from person ID equals so, but if we do person, then that does work. So yeah, they need to go together. Okay, so but if you look, that is around 70 to 80 microseconds, but you could also just do this, which is around 50 microseconds, and I suspect that will get a lot bigger the more records you have. And I might do some tests, because in order to do this one here, it's doing, I'm pretty sure it's doing a scan, so it will look at the first one and says, does this one have this ID? And in this case, because there's only one thing, it says, oh, yes, it does. But, you know, if what you're looking for is the millionth and 723rd item in a big database, then it's going to take quite a while to scan through all of these. Whereas my understanding is that if you just select straight from the record, it's more like a hash map. I don't know how it's actually implemented, but basically it can go more or less straight to it. How exactly that works is I do not know at the moment, but it would be an interesting thing to look into, and it is all open source, so can look at the code. So let me go back, because if we look at here inside the result, that has the time. which I think you can get out by the speed. So it would be interesting. We could also do. We should be able to do somewhere. Might as well do it up here. If we could do print line and then time taken, and then how exactly this will display, I am not sure, but if I go select response, and I have to take the first one, and then dot speed, let's see what that takes. And then I could do some simple benchmarking things. And if I remember correctly, by default with a not in-memory data store, with a persistent one, basically, it backs it up, whatever, writes it, makes sure that it's you wouldn't lose anything every 500 microseconds, which I think is twice a section. But you can probably change that somewhere. Alright, so time taken in that case was 1. Oh, and it printed out nicely as well. What we could do is if we switch this back to an in-memory one, if we uncomment this, get rid of this, uncomment this, we can add a bunch of records. So I could do for I in and then now we have the question of putting data in. So let me think. I mean, the obvious one thing you could do is just put numbers in and then search for a specific number. So I'll put let what should I say? Entry num equal 1,000, and then I'll just replace this here. And then, so I suppose the question is, to use a format or just, you could just concatenate it. And also, how does it know what type it is? If we go here and we, I don't know, create entry, set info, or just set num equals 7. So I'm not sure whether you need when equals time now. Does that work? Versus if we set info, there's no question. Yeah. So if we take, just thinking how to do this. The format macro is probably the easiest way to do this. Can you could I do? Set when now. Num equals, and then here go format, and then I. No, it doesn't like that. I understand anyway. Anyway, so for now I will just copy that in there. Oh. Huh? Okay, I'll try and figure that out in a minute. Just excuse me, I just need to take a break for a minute. So I'll be back in a minute. Right, okay. So let's. Is it because of the is it because of the R? It's weird because it says this is a string slice, not a expected. Standard string. So because what does format? I suppose it's a. So if I say, what did it find? Return type. Found struct standard string. So that's the heap allocated growable string. But this is the. So should I do that? No. So I guess guess I just have to, you can't use raw strings in format. Wait. That still doesn't work. Expected. It's not in the, is the, because that works fine. Oh, is that the out? Ah, so the R. Right. Okay, so the problem is format outputs a string. So now you can how do you convert a string to a because surely oh, well maybe if let's try if I put it in here and then I did this. Ah, much better. Okay. So now I can put an I in there. And now well, maybe let's not maybe let's just do 10 for now. So let's see. So now I should get 10 IDs and the time. Probably put the time at the bottom if I'm going to have a bunch of them. Time taken. Ah, good. And not very much longer. So now what I can do is I can comment all of that out because that's getting all of them, and then I could do another one. So I'll just call it. Problem is all these names. So this is why when I actually start writing things, we need to split everything out into more functions so I don't pollute all the names. Yeah, I'll just call it the same thing, I guess. Though that should be called result. Anyway. So I need these lines as well. That's kind of important. So instead of select, we want let's try where num equals and then let's try if we're actually going to do this. Let's do format. Where num equals, and then let's do add equals let's see, use rand. Hello? Okay, so RNG equals oh, sorry. Let me. I always forget the syntax. So it's we need like mute RNG equals, and then you want rand, thread RNG, that's it. And then here we go RNG there's a gen range, that's it. Gen. Oh, you give a probability, that's neat. Okay, gen range, and we want zero dot dot and then an entry num, like this. And so, oh no, I've already added that. I want to cargo run. So hopefully that will give the time it takes to create a random thing out of those. So, oh, this is all messed up. So I don't. So in this object, let's just print the object. Need that. So let's try again. Yeah, this compilation time thing is very annoying. I've been meaning to move to Linux for development for so long, but it's one of those things where it's just annoying. And it takes a lot of effort because I do everything on Windows at the moment. Okay, so that's good. So it would be interesting to see what if we, oh, that's only with 10. So if we do, how about 1 million? And then, even though, of course, I've only changed a number, that's going to take another 20 seconds to compile. I always forget whether if I had another file that had a module in with some of the code with functions, I didn't change those, whether it recompiles those. Alright, I guess this one is... the thing is, can you... Because, I suppose I'm running a million queries of the database, which I suppose is interesting to... It's interesting in and of itself to measure, well, how long each of those queries takes, as well as this sort of scan query at the end. Let me be interesting to look in the thing about the SurrealQL, because now I come to think about it, that actually might take a while. This would be actually, now I come to think of it, the entering the numbers in is I think a far more interesting question, come to think of it, than taking them out. This would be an interesting test to see how much memory. So I don't know how much. Doesn't seem to be. The container has 6 gigs of memory available, and it doesn't seem to have gone up significantly. So we shall see. Though the CPU is pinned, so that might be more to the point. But is there a way that you can? Because effectively, what I'd want to do is, well, I don't know, whether you want to put them in a transaction or you want to tell. Because what I want to do is, instead of sending all of those to the database, I mean the database is within the program, so I don't know how much difference it would make, but I'm sort of creating the query, each query which then needs to be parsed, when it would be a lot easier. Though I mean, I suppose I'm not sure how much that would happen in the real world. Because it says that, let me just check, still not done. It says that you can include JavaScript functions, which I want. There's probably some Rust or other JavaScript runtime that it takes. But they also mentioned that you can use WebAssembly functions. I wonder how easy it is to include functions you write in Rust when you embed it. Because obviously that would be the obvious thing to do. Though it doesn't mention here WebAssembly, but I have seen that. I think I might have gone slightly overkill with that. But I mean, lots of times a million things, other things that not so bad. Anyway, I might just crash it off. Let's just try 1,000, see if that works any better. So yeah, I think it's pretty neat. I think to have be useful, you have to write a lot of helper functions to deal with a lot of this stuff, and some of those it might be useful as just sort of generic ones to deal with the database, but I'm not sure. So for 1,000 that takes 95 milliseconds, which is quite so interesting because yeah, I have to try that with everyone. So if it took 95, well, I'll run again. Let's see. 93. So yeah, 93, 95. But if I do 10,000, and that's just that doesn't include the time to add them in. That is just the because that's from SurrealDB itself. That is the time to do this query to search a random one. Though I suppose also the value of this depends on what random number is selected. But the time for the create entries would be as well. So it seems for those sort of scan queries it does seem linear. I don't know how it wouldn't be linear. So I suppose the answer is try not to do queries like that. Or if you, or at least try not to have a situation where you're searching for something specific that's not, and if you are, try and use the records to do that. It would be interesting I wonder how I could add that many records in the, because what I could do, I'm just curious if I swap these around and then I ran it again and then see how long it took relatively if you just have the record. Because it was taking about 55 microseconds before with the record. So it'd be interesting, and that was just with 1 or 2 in there. How much difference does it make if you have 10,000? Another thing I've been thinking about is whether you could put a left-right, like in Noria, in front of it. So this is the same time, but now I comment these ones out. And then but instead of this, I want to I don't need the format. I need you. That's fine. So num equals. So then I can do where ID is entry colon right. So this should be the same. This should take the same amount of time, basically. Be interesting if it doesn't, though. But I just on the where, it would just be doing a full scan. But if we do this, is it going to take? See, now that only takes 1.2 microseconds. So that is it still takes longer, because on only a couple of records it was, taking 50 microseconds or something. But that's a pretty drastic difference. They might have. So it seems like it does increase, but the time complexity is significantly better. Anyway, so I haven't done much in the sort of graph connections and the actually interesting stuff and why you want to use it, but I think, and it's very early on, so I think it's very good, but I think it would be. I think there's some more refinement could be done to make it clearer and simpler for people who are starting out, and hopefully I'm still learning and figuring out both Rust and SurrealDB. But I think it's very promising, and I have a project lined up that I want to use it for. I've already written a prototype, sort of not quite an MVP, minimum viable demonstration, I suppose is what we often call these things. And that's using PHP and MySQL. And I was planning to do a rewrite anyway in Rust and Svelte, and having it as sort of one application, which is why I was looking at what's it called, SQLite. But then I saw something on SurrealDB and looks pretty neat. So see that in the future. So I think I'll do some more exploration on. Spend a couple minutes, maybe tomorrow, doing some joins and playing more around in it in Rust as opposed to on the CLI, and then at some point soon see if I can start actually implementing an application in it, which is, I think, pretty exciting. So good. Well, I hope there's any interesting. I hope if you do find that interesting, stay tuned for other projects and see this one develop and implement SurrealDB in actual products. So stay tuned, and stay tuned, and I will see you next time.